Hello, friends, and of course, everybody else who is not friend. This program is a special program of the project, The Fourth Branch. This particular program is geared most exclusively to Trump supporters. I have a question that's been troubling me, and it is as simple as, what the hell? I made 3 bets about Trump supporters, and I lost all those 3 bets. But in order to understand why it is important to talk about those 3 bets, it's because those bets were mostly geared towards defending Trump supporters for the position they took during the 2016 presidential election. Now, before I forget, I must tell you that every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. we have our regular program, and this weekend we will continue the documentary debating similarities between Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump. But today it's a very different program. There are 2 objectives to the program today. One is to explain the bets that I made in regards to Trump supporters and why I lost those bets, and trying to explain to myself and to Trump supporters exactly where we at. Now, almost everywhere that you look, except of course on Fox, everything that's going on in the country seems to be normal. In fact, it seems to be the best thing that has happened to America since its existence. Now, if you look beyond those borders, you do not go to Fox and keep yourself in that world, in that alternate world, in that bubble, it looks reality is very different. In other words, the country, when in the past, the argument that the country is divided seems to refer to divided between Democrats and Republicans. Now, for sake of information, I'd like to point out that the Fourth Branch Project is not a party project. It is not affiliated with either political party, and it only debates topics and issues that impacts our society, and we hopefully able to suggest solution. We are in no position to implement the solution, but we suggest solution because that's really the very point of the project. So when we debate, as we're doing now in our regular program, similarities between Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump, of course, Trump supporters are up in arms in regards to what's the point and why, and automatically assume that it has to be a damn liberal that's doing this program. But again, I'm not affiliated with either political party, nor is this project support one party over another. Now back to what we were discussing. So it seems, and at this point, in fact, from the feedback that I had gotten from Trump supporters, it seems that they have, using the word that have been used in the general parlance, they have digged in their heels into their position, because as far as they are concerned, whatever position that they took when they supported and voted for Trump, that's the position that they have, and they're not going to change it. Now, before I take a look at that aspect and talk a little bit about it, now let me say the 3 bets that I had. First, I did bet that in a lot of the people who supported and voted for Trump, it's because of the first aspect of their life. They are racist, and they wanted to give the finger to Obama, and they figured what is the best way to do that is to prevent Hillary Clinton from being elected, because it was common knowledge that Hillary would have continued Obama's policy, and most likely, as it was pretty much a conversation that, especially on Fox, you used to hear that a Hillary administration is a 3rd term of Obama. So I bet that most of those people who supported Donald Trump, most of them, a great majority of them, did that. It's because they wanted to give the finger to someone, Obama. Not only they didn't support, they didn't like, and some of them even resented Obama with a vengeance. Now, we're not going to go to the detail of providing all those different proofs that are readily available, but we all know that during Obama's term administration, that a number of things, even the Republican in Washington, a great number of policies that in the past they embraced, but because it was Obama, they opposed those policies. So we know that millions of Republicans wanted to give the finger to Obama. So I bet that once Donald Trump became president, then most of those people will simply walk away from Trump. I lost that bet. So the second bet that I had, and I pretty much thought that that I would have won that bet, because the second is kind of a complementary to the first one, that most of those people simply didn't like Hillary Clinton, because we heard throughout the general election campaign that the vitrials laid at Hillary Clinton doorstep were so dark that there is no way that any of those people would vote for Hillary. Now, even the Republicans, if you remember, there were a group of Republicans that had a Never Trump campaign or a Never Trump movement, which presumably would deny Donald Trump the presidency. Now, despite that fact, despite this group, and it wasn't as big as the group that voted for Trump, but there was a sizable group of Republicans who could not see themselves voting for Trump, or who would not want Trump to become president. Now, ironically, those same group, had they voted for Hillary Clinton, then they could have achieved their goal, but they hated Hillary. So both the Trump supporters and those who didn't want Trump, both of those groups did something that prevented Hillary from becoming president, and even the group that had this Never Trump banner movement, they couldn't see themselves voting for Hillary. So I bet that because Hillary was so hated by the Republican, they would do everything to prevent her from becoming president. But once the election was over, then those people would pretty much have a normal life and let it go. I also lost that bet. Now, the third one, I'm glad that I'm not a gambling person, because I could have bet money that I would win the third bet. And the reason is because I sincerely believe that all the people who supported and voted for Donald Trump, there were patriots who would walk away from Donald Trump in a heartbeat once and if they discover that Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about the country, doesn't care an iota about the country, they would just walk away from Donald Trump. Now, needless to say that I also lost that bet. Now, that brings me the conclusion as to, especially the third one, how could I have lost that? Because if you know anything about, or if you've been observing the Republican Party in general, they are very attached to label. They very much like to portray themselves as patriot. In fact, at the very beginning of the Trump administration in the first year, if you remember, there was even a big hoopla about Colin Kaepernick, who knelt during the national anthem, and Trump made that a big deal that a patriot, as a patriot, you're supposed to stand for the flag for the national anthem. So Republican like label. So, but that bet I made prior to the general election, because I imagine that there are people who are not, or there would be a few people who are not patriot, but overwhelmingly, you would have, especially in the Republican rank, who like a label. They like to call themselves conservative, they like to call themselves patriot. So I automatically imagine that they would be more patriots than they would be attached to a political party. Needless to point out that I was wrong. Not in a loose sense, but in very big way. Because it seems that there is a huge misunderstanding as to what being patriot meant. Because during the whole debate about football players kneeling during the national anthem to protest police brutality, it looks like there was this conversation that seems to equate being an American citizen the same as being a patriot, or standing for the national anthem is a sign of being patriot. Now, I'm not going to debate or discuss what that is, because in previous tape I talk a great deal about that, but let me just point, for sake of conversation here, that standing for the national anthem, putting your hand on your chest, is a sign of pride, is a sign of nationalism, but it's not patriotism. This is not patriotism. Patriotism requires sacrifice. Standing for the national anthem is not a sacrifice. So, in fact, that's the irony of the whole thing. A true patriot is someone who would sacrifice their own belief in order to protect the rights of an individual or a group from government wrongdoing. Ironic, isn't it? That's the true definition of a patriot, is someone that would sacrifice whatever belief that they have, whatever that they stand for, in order to protect an individual or a group from government wrongdoing. So Colin Kaepernick and a few other football players kneel to protest wrongdoing by the government. A patriot would support that, would encourage that, would actually participate, because when a group is being wronged by the government, it is every citizen's responsibility to support that individual or that group to defend such from government wrongdoing, because today is Group A, tomorrow it will be Group B, unless every citizen reunites to protect one another from government wrongdoing. And if that continues, sooner or later, freedom will be lost and government will become dictatorship, authoritarian. So that's why it's done. That's what a patriot is. So now, I found out that that's not so. But you could have had the debate that says, okay, well, what makes you think that they're not patriot? Well, there are plenty of examples. The example I just gave, you could have written that off and say, well, that's not a big deal if they do not defend those who kneel to protest government wrongdoing. Well, you cannot really discard that, but the example that actually come to reinforce that argument, that despite the fact that most, if not all, Trump supporters like to think of themselves as patriot, but reality says very differently. It's either, which we will discuss in a few seconds, but it tells me one or two things. It's either they have no idea what being a patriot is, or they simply not patriot, because it cannot be both. You cannot be a patriot and not do what a patriot's supposed to do. So you cannot have it both ways. Now, what in general parlance, what broke the camel back, so to speak, is the summit in Helsinki, Finland, on July 16 of this year, between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Now, I have a very difficult time, and I have to tell you a little bit about how I process information about different groups, different individuals. If I am talking to a 2-year-old, 3, 4, 5 years old, every group, every category of people that I'm interacting with, meaning I process reaction and the ways of thinking and level of intelligence based on my audience, which means I make assumption about my audience based on their level in society, what I perceive or conceive as level of education, as level of understanding. So having said that, when you sit down to watch, if you spend time watching the summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, even if you were to be the most stupid individual on the face of the planet, let alone if you are an American, if you are a patriot, there is no way you could walk away from that and have an argument to defend the President of the United States. There is absolutely no way. Even if you were to be a blind person sitting there and someone was explaining to you what was going on, if you could hear, there is no way in the world you could walk away from that and yet still come up with some sort of argument to defend the President of the United States, who actually trash the country, who vilifies its institution, who denigrates its press, its media. Now, I don't care the level of intelligence someone has. If you cannot process this simple fact, and yet, the irony of the whole thing, I have a number of Trump supporters who have started to insult me for actually a few reasons. Number one, since I started the documentary debating the similarities between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler, I have started to get to become the recipient of insult from Trump supporters. And after I wrote the article that Republicans are dumber than Democrats, or rather are Republicans dumber than Democrats, then it has the insult gauge has increased considerably. Now, it is very easy to say a sentence and for someone to argue with you. But what I have found thus far with people who are actually, who make it their business to insult me when I don't make a statement. In fact, if you read the article, or anybody who did, would see that I make an argument about something scientifically proven in order to actually make the argument about Republican dumber than Democrat. Now, the sentence itself sounds very insulting. If you just take that sentence, that title, and my suspicion is that's all most Republicans or most Trump supporters do, they just take the title without taking the time to read, and then they open their box of insult. Now, everything that I write about, every presentation is not made for the sake of writing about it or for the sake of talking about it. In fact, the very purpose of this program, as I mention every time I have a chance, is to work towards a more perfect union. Now, in order to do that, there are obstacles that have to be removed. And those obstacles have to do with knowledge, have to do with ignorance. So unless you remove ignorance from the equation, you cannot achieve a more perfect union. So the very purpose, the only purpose of this project is to achieve a more perfect union. Now, again, I debate topics, I discuss topics, but in the end, I try to propose solution, suggest rather solution, to remove the obstacle that prevent the achieving of a more perfect union. So it's not for the sake of talking that Trump supporters are, in this case, very unpatriotic, because it's not even about political party. You cannot put that on Democrat versus Republican. There is no argument there in regards to that particular conversation. It's not a Democrat versus Republican. It's the president of the United States who went on the world stage. On the world stage, the whole world was watching, and he took that opportunity, instead of elevating the United States, instead of elevating our institution, instead of elevating our media, because the world, actually before Donald Trump, used to look up to the United States for guidance, used to look up to the United States to see how the media in the United States talk, speak, write, how the media in the United States is treated by the government, how the institution in the United States act. Today, why would they? The president of the United States, the person whose job is to elevate the country, whose job is to make the citizen of the country feel good. Now that individual went on world stage and completely bashed the United States, bashed its institution, bashed its media. That's not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's a citizen issue. It's a patriot issue. So when someone who support Donald Trump for president of the United States, and you stood there watching that, and then afterwards, instead of feeling regret to have supported someone like that, instead of feeling that, gee, what have I done, or being remorseful to have put your trust on someone who cannot even defend the country he was born in, who cannot even defend the institution who make the United States what it is. The president, we're not talking about an American citizen. In fact, even if it were to be any American citizen doing what Donald Trump did in Finland, we would have been very outraged by it. We would have been very critical of an American citizen doing that to the country. In fact, I remember very clearly how much ridicule was launched at Obama when he went around the world pretty much apologizing for whatever wrongdoing we had done to other nations. In fact, I remember that Fox even had a video they made, and they call it an apology tour. Now contrast that today with Donald Trump, who went on a tour insulting every single ally the United States has. Now, as if that wasn't enough, he went on the world stage and make the United States look like a third world country. The president of the United States. So don't come and talk to me about patriotism, because you are no patriot. In fact, I would bet anyone who is a patriot would have simply completely walked away from Donald Trump after that performance. Now, I know you could not possibly like what you're hearing. In fact, I could almost rest assured that you probably already walk away or about to, because you cannot hear those kind of things. A patriot is someone who will defend his country at all cost, even the cost of his own life. So when you say that you're a patriot and you watch the individual you supported and voted for on the world stage vilifying the country you quote unquote love, and then you're telling me you standing behind that person, you continue to support that person. But worse, that's not even the worst of it. The worst is the fact that now you have an argument to defend that individual. I have people who actually, as if, I don't know if they're trying to make an argument to make me feel bad, because when I bring that in conversation, in article that I wrote, in video, in tweets, usually I get a tweet that says something to the effect that we are with Trump all the way, Trump 2020. Now that doesn't insult me. It actually it justifies the fact that what I know of those who support Trump. Now I already know, and they already proven it, that they are no patriot, because it's not, to them, it's not about the country. It's not about protecting the country. It's not about defending the country. Because it seems that there is no argument about protecting the country. But here's what makes it even worse. You think what I just said was worse? No. When you have a network, Fox, now it's bad enough that you have a number of people who are not patriot, who would rather the country becomes a third world country, who would rather the country becomes, we lose everything that we cherish, the freedom that we have, the moving about that we can do without any fear. They would rather lose that. Now, on top of that, you have a network who's supposed to educate people, who's supposed to tell them, who actually call itself a news network. And that's what even worse about it, because when you have a news or a network that advertises itself as a news network, spending every hour of the day twisting reality, passing wrong information, my God, this is why the United States is in the predicament it is now. People who are supposed to be patriot all simply give that up. And on top of that, you have a news organization that's helping either keep it that way or make it worse. 82% of the people who actually watch Fox, they are completely ignorant of the facts and the truth. Ignorance is the biggest threat to democracy. Ignorance, when you don't know something, or when what you think you know is true is not, we're heading towards dictatorship. And that's what Fox, day in, day out, is doing. And they're not doing that by mistake. They are doing that deliberately. Because it's not a mistake when Sean Hannity comes on Fox and tell you everything that he's talking about is untrue. Everything he's talking about is false. Twist information, and day in, day out, that's what you hear. And to make it look as if what they're doing has any value, they bring other people who get paid a few $1,000s to reinforce the same lies. My God, my God. It's either you want the country to succeed or you want the country to fail. You cannot say you want both. You cannot be a patriot and participate in those kind of things. And don't tell me you're a patriot, because you are not. And it's not a Democrat or a Republican thing. If you are behind someone who vilifies the United States of America, who make the United States of America looks as if it is any country like any other country in the world, you actively participating in removing the freedom that we have enjoyed. And you cannot call yourself a patriot because you are not. The President of the United States is an accomplice to that. I even get to ask myself the question, who is Donald Trump exactly? Now, there is a lot of talk about a lot of things that is happening. Now, those things alone should have been sufficient for anybody who supported and voted Donald Trump to walk away from him. Those things should have been sufficient, because there are enough. In fact, I'll take a step back. There are enough reason not to have voted Donald Trump in office, because a number of things that happened were already in the public arena. So it's not anything, it's not something that anybody is learning today. But the performance in Helsinki was enough to drop Donald Trump's support to zero. Because anybody who is a patriot, an American patriot, should not have any reason whatsoever to still stand behind the president, the first person whose primary job is to elevate the country, but did just the opposite. Nobody should have been behind that person. And yet we have Republicans who still defending, arguing their support for Donald Trump. Seriously? Really? What the hell? I'll be right back. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch Project, the first and only program which is dedicated exclusively to those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. The Fourth Branch Project seeks to emphasize country over party. Its primary objective is to restore interest in civic duty and involvement in social, political issues, discussion, debate, which might impact lives in this generation and quite possibly in future ones. Put differently, the Fourth Branch Project is a journey towards restoring America's greatness, where patriotism is the foundation of every decision, every policy, every word, every action. Said differently, it is a journey to save democracy in America. Stay with us. We will be right back. Hello again. We are talking about Donald Trump's performance in Helsinki, Finland on July 16, 2018 in the during the summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Once again, I'd like to remind you that every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. we have a program where we debate social political issues with the ultimate objective to suggest a solution, hopefully that will help to achieve a more perfect union. This coming Saturday, we will continue the documentary. That would be part 8. The part 8 of the documentary debating similarities between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. Don't miss it. You don't want to miss it, because at the point we're at, we need to know what we are up to. So I strongly encourage you to join me Saturday during the debate between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. Stay with me. I'll be right back. See you Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a very lively discussion. Be there. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. you Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a very lively discussion. Be there. I thank you for watching the special program. Don't forget, this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. we will have our program, our regular program, and we will be debating the similarities between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. Don't forget, this program is made exclusively to provide information which will help us make decisions that based on facts. So join me Saturday for the continuation of the documentary debating the similarities between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. I hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of the day.